Shit is about to get real. This is Raw and Real with your business BFFs, Lauren Ciesco and Jen Navarro. Let's be honest, no one likes a long intro, so let's dive in now.
Vibes instead of spooky vibes.
What it's about.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, the vibes attract your tribes, which is what we're going to start talking about today. How to make friends and network after 40.
You know what? This topic is really funny to me because, like, it seems like no one talks about this. But I mean, even after you get out of college, it's like, how do you meet people and make friends?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think one of the hardest things, well, here's the thing. When you're in school, it's obvious you become friends with your classmates. And then when you graduate, you go to work and then you become friends with your coworkers. But when you work by yourself, there's a whole other, you don't have those people around you, and you really have to actually get out and go look for those friendships and go connect. And that's really business and sales 101, is just connecting with others. And so we really want to do this episode as kind of a updated advice of how do you really authentically network and make friends, and especially after COVID. We're in a whole new era right now. Things are completely different because I think people are starving for real connection now. Especially after being online for so much and not being able to be in person. I think that there is a whole new desire to really have connection.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, okay, so before we even met, I really would say that I never made friends online. I was like, even though people would follow my Instagram or like connect on Facebook, it's not like I actually made any super tight connections. I want to say that the majority of the people that I met after 25 was because of work. And I was always, until I became a coach, working in environments where there were a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it was easy to like make friends in that sense. There was something that happened during COVID and needing to be home, and then not actually understanding how to decipher between the energy of somebody just like popping into my DMs to sell me something, or somebody genuinely popping into my DMs because they wanted to connect on a real level.
Yeah.
I feel like I had to learn it.
Absolutely. And I think that that's really the energy is really what you can read when somebody reaches out. Like, how does that feel? And for everyone listening, it is possible to meet friends online. That's how me and Jen met. And at this point, I've actually met quite a few people that I met online in person now. And I think that's a really great place to start, is just being open and not having any expectations. And I think back to mine and Jen's friendship that literally was like kind of like a cold DM on some level, to be honest, right? Because we didn't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you waved to me and then I waved back. So there was this, how do you break the ice without feeling like you're going to go sell somebody? Because I think as soon as somebody pops into our DMs or emails us or after, we're kind of like, okay, what do they want from us?
Yeah. I mean, and especially now in the world where it's very common to have an online business. Yeah. And sell through DMing people. And, with the world having shifted as it did, it is more cause for concern. You know what I mean? Is this person a real human being? Like, am I being catfished right now? Are they trying to sell me something? Yeah. Can I trust them if I like message with them? It's a whole different level of meeting people online.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's beautiful. I think that social media can be that double-edged sword, and it really has opened a whole world for us to connect with people all around the world. And I think that there's a part of us that I think it's good to be open and have that online presence, because God, you know how beautiful it is for us to have a voice to reach so many people and to really allow that to be a tool for us. But how to navigate that, and how me and Jen have kind of learned, is it really is the intention behind it, right? So we can take an action, we can reach out to somebody, but it's, why are you doing it? And if you're reaching out to somebody because you're trying to sell them or you have an attachment to an outcome, that's when things can feel really icky. And I think that one of the main points that we're going to really talk about today on this episode is how do you try to force things, right? How do you know that you want to connect with people, not only just for friendships, but also for business and eventually, to sell, to sign clients or make money? There's just all through connection. So how does that actually come through in a very genuine way? And there's a few different factors. And I think first of it is the intention of when and why you're reaching out and not trying to force and not having any attachment to an outcome.
Yeah. I think that too is something that we learn over time through the process of doing it.
Yeah.
Because even now, so now I've been living in Mexico City, hence we are here in my studio. And I think that just this year, I've gotten good at deciphering who I'm actually feeling a real connection with and who is a person who I'm just meeting and may or may not see them again, and learning how to be okay with that. Because at first, having gotten this opportunity to actually meet people in person, I was so excited. I would take everybody's phone number and then make plans and then have to cancel them because I really don't have a social battery like I did when I was maybe younger, or I don't know, just in a different place in my life. And so being here, I had to learn over the past year, oh, do I have a real connection with this person? Or am I just trying to stack my contact list for no other reason than I just am really interested in actually making friends? So it's almost like accepting anybody as my friend, but Amber's a little bit more discerning when it comes to getting people's information. I'm just like, hey, it's nice to meet you. Maybe we can connect later. And maybe 20% of the people who I do connect with, I do actually create like a bond and a friendship with, which is, in my case, it's a lot of people because here in Mexico City, and Lauren seeing this, there are a ton of people. She's made friends while she's been here over the past 2 days.
Yeah. It's been very easy to meet new friends here. But yeah, there is a discerning. And I think this is also like relevant with business because we're not trying to talk with everybody. Everyone's not going to be our ideal client or who we're meant to talk with. And so our ability to discern like who we're really trying to connect with and then be very intentional about the people that we're wanting to connect with and wanting to call in. And I think one of my skills or one of the things that I'm known for is helping people make a lot of money with a very small audience. So you don't need to be friends with everybody. You don't need to have a huge following. I had a couple hundred people on my email list, 300 people on my email list, 1,500 followers on social media, and I've made like multiple six figures. So it's not like it's our ability to just be like, no, I just need to find the right people, but I don't need to find everybody.
I have a question for you because I'm imagining that a lot of the people listening out here, right, are say they're living somewhere outside of a big city and they are running a business from home, and their day-to-day is like running the business from home, maybe like taking the kids to school and picking them up from school. But for the most part, they're like in their smaller town and they're not finding the same type of opportunities as somebody who's like nomadic or somebody who like doesn't have any kids and just decided. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, a couple of things. This is a great question. First off, there's just people all around you. So the parents of the kids, maybe you can meet friends through there or clients, but you just never know. Like every single person that you come in contact with is a potential connection. So to judge that the person is the barista at the coffee shop or the PTA mom so like we're constantly coming into contact with people just as we are living our life in our normal day-to-day life. So that's one thing. I think if you want to then expand outside of just being open to what's around you, I think online, right, is definitely an option to go and find. I mean, and here's the thing. There are so many apps out there right now, like meetup.com. What's the other one? Eventbrite, a Bumble BFF. So there's I think that you can use technology to connect you with the right people to then meet up, because it sometimes might be hard to find the people around you. And especially if you lived in the same town for a while, you're like, I've met everyone here. But I live in a small town in Sayulita, and it's tiny. And I've been there for 3.5 years, and I always am like, I met everybody. But I keep on meeting people that I haven't met. And I was like, oh my gosh. And they're like, oh, I've been here for 8 years. I'm like, how have we not met?
8 years.
Yeah. So, and you guys, this town is like 6 to 12,000 people, depending on the time
Not
of year.
12,000,
100,
1,200.
sorry.
Something-
1,200, yes.
Yeah, I want to say I looked it up and it was like maybe up till 3,000. That's it.
3,000?
Yeah.
No, I think it's closer to 6,000. Anyways, it's a tiny town.
Under
Right?
10,000. How
So-
about that?
As somebody who, Jen lives in Mexico City, which is huge. I'm in a tiny town. And through this community, through just actually being myself and going to the places that I enjoy, I've met my right people. So I think one of the best ways to meet people is figure out what lights me up, what do I want to do, what's going to make me happy, and then go do that, because the people that are like you are going to be doing that thing, right? So for instance, pottery. When I was in my mid-20s, I actually was really into volleyball, and I like signed up for a bunch of local volleyball groups, and I made like a ton of friends. So when we're just thinking about when you want to connect with people, what lights you up, and then go find people with like similar ideas or want to do the same things. And that's, I think, some of the best ways, is a combination of opening your eyes, just being literally open to somebody popping into your routine, using the internet as a tool, using apps as a tool, and being very specific about who you actually want to be friends with, and being discerning.
Yeah, I think it's important that what you just said about staying open,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that there's a lot of people who are like anti.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to date on apps. Like, why would I meet somebody on an app? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's just, even though it's like very prevalent that we work with all the time,
Yeah.
people don't think that maybe the meeting a person because of an app is like a more shallow way to meet people than if they organically did it in person.
It's just a tool. It's just a tool, and it's how you're going to use it. And there are people on apps with shitty attitudes and closed off. And there are people on apps that are so open and like ready. And I think that's a big part of it, is actually being open to it. Like, how often are we just like walking around our lives, like in our zones on our phone, right?
Yeah.
This is just like literally being an open energy. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my life and in my business right now is my ability to open my heart. Because making friends and networking has always been very easy for me. Now, granted, I've done the things you shouldn't do in networking, which we'll talk about at some point, but it comes down to just really being able to be comfortable with yourself, really just being open. And the more open you are, and the open energy, even body language, like not being on your phone, just being like in the intention to be like, hey, something different can pop in. That's all it could take. And that's what it was with me and you. And I think about that with guys I've met or other friendships. For example, one of my clients, I met her and she hired me because I rented an Airbnb from her. And when I went over to see the Airbnb, she said, what do you do? And I told her, she's like, oh shit, I need to hire you. And then we went to lunch, and then she hired me, and now we're friends. So you just never know.
Yeah, you really never know. I think that also my thought around like in that scenario of living in like a smaller town outside of a city and like not knowing where or how to network, like if you don't like a group in your town yet, you can be the one to start it. I know this sounds like, it might sound like a lot, because especially if you're an introverted person, but this is something that Lauren was about to start doing in the town that she lives in, because we have been talking about get yourself into entrepreneurial networking groups.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's the thing where it's like, if you don't have it there, create it, because I promise you, if you're craving it, there are other people out there that are craving it too. And I think that one of the things because a big part of my work is around embodiment and is around, really being connected to ourselves. And I bet that there are a lot of you out there being, okay, this is great advice. That sounds good. I actually know what I need to do. Like, a lot of this is, this is like, but the thing that's actually keeping you stuck is your emotions, the fear, the fear of rejection, feeling awkward, just things that happen when we like put ourselves out there, because that's what making friends and networking is, your ability to be seen and your ability to actually open up and let people in. So part of this is definitely tactical, right? A huge part of this is actually internal. And I can always tell when I'm really aligned to myself and really aligned to my work, because I don't actually have to make a lot of effort to sign clients and make friends, because people are coming to me because I'm just really open and my energy is open. But it also requires, for a lot of things, it's just to put myself out there. And because I've done it so much and I've really have learned how to overcome rejection and have worked with my emotions, and I don't let that things hold me back. And because I've done it so many times now, and especially when me and Jen, we were we became expats living in Mexico in our 40s. So that means we both had to make brand whole new groups of friends all in the last couple of years. And so we went through this of pretty much like starting over. Of course, we have our old friends still, but when you move to new places, and I've done this a few times now where I've just kind of been, bounced around, and it really is, it's a skill set. And I've gotten really good at it because I've done it so much. So if you haven't done it for a while, if you haven't made a new friend for a while, if you haven't been networking for a while, you're like, I really want to do this, but I feel scared. I just want you to honor that. That's a real thing. And that's what I call emotional coding in our body. And that's our emotions that are in our way. You don't have a motivational problem. You don't have a inspirational problem. It's just that there is literally coding in your body that's just like, keep me safe, keep me safe. Right. So sometimes I would just say too that allow yourself to do it a little scared, or stop and process your emotions, feel the feelings, and then do it anyways. And that's going to be a big part of this. Is we can give you all of our episodes, we can give you the strategy and help you see some of the actions to take. But it's your actual willingness to step out of your comfort zone, which is what makes making friends and networking so hard, and why people don't actually do it.
Yeah, especially as we get older too. Yeah. Interestingly enough, here, there was an opportunity for Amber and I to meet people while we thought we were visiting. We really thought we were only going to visit for a month. And I found, so this wasn't even a business Facebook group, but I was like, I want to see if I could find things to do while we're here with people who are like local, like more local. And I found this Facebook group for like Americans living in Mexico City, or like expats living in Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like scrolling the group, and I come across a post that was like supper club, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, a supper club. I've never been to one of those before. I had no idea. They were hosting something called a Storytell. And I was like, oh, this sounds interesting, because, the story. Are you familiar with the moth? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say the moth?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, okay. So the moth, it's basically a storytelling community, and they have events where amateur storytellers can stand up and tell a story. Yeah, it's really cool. And I've been liking it since I was in New York City. I've never gone to an actual moth event, but I've gone to adjacent type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was interested in the supper club because of the storytelling aspect of it. So Amber and I decided to go to it, and it's at this woman's house. I was scared because, like I said, I've never done anything like this before. Yeah. And we know nobody here in Mexico City. So we go to this woman's house, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so uncomfortable. I'm in somebody's house right now, and I'm going to eat dinner with a bunch of strangers, because the tables weren't restaurant style. They were like family style, right? Yeah. There was only like 2 different tables you could sit at, and everybody's place was around those tables. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, let's do this, And so we get into it. The food happened to be vegan, which I'm vegetarian, and it's sometimes hard to find like food that I can eat. So I was pleasantly surprised that this woman was a vegan chef cooking for the supper club. And we started doing this Storytell, which happened to be like the greatest icebreaker I've ever.
Oh, I can imagine. It's like you're right, because you tell stories and it says like it's so much of tells us so much about that person.
Yes, and the storytelling theme was a crossroads. Mm-hmm. And so the theme was so easy because she didn't want to tell you what to say in it. And so everybody had to interpret the theme for themselves, and not everybody had to talk. But if you wanted to speak, you would just feel moved to speak. You'd raise your hand and you'd tell a story. And I was like, I've never been so nervous in my life to tell a story. And I could feel my heart beating out of my chest. And I like happened to tell the story of how I came out. Wow, I really dove in right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so now, a year later, maybe, about a year later, the woman who threw the supper club is one of our best friends here in Mexico City. She literally lives 2 floors below us. And I was like, I have never in my life been that bold to do something that daring. And maybe it was just, the lightness of it being a vacation and not like a business trip or like a business networking thing was what made the difference. So also keep that in mind. I think the word networking sometimes has a stigma around it. And what it means to us is like, I have to act a certain way and carry my business card and be about my business. But really what you're doing is you're just connecting, like what you were saying in the beginning.
Absolutely.
I think that we misconstrue what networking really means because now there's like this idea of who you need to become when you're networking and telling people about your business. But people like working with people who they like.
Totally. And I think that's a big thing where when it comes to networking, when we put pressure on it, like you said, where it's like, okay, now I'm going to go do my business thing. And we're often, let's be honest, most people go to networking because it's like part of their marketing. Right? And marketing is to get your word out there. So it's like, part of selling. And so we think that when we're out marketing that we need to be when we're out networking that we need to be selling ourselves, or like making offers. But before somebody wants to work with you, they got to care about you. I say this all the time where it's like, people don't really care about what you do until they care about who you are and why you do it.
I mean, and on top of that, even is they need to feel like you care about them.
Exactly. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I think are the mistakes that people make when it comes to networking and selling, and the having an agenda or like trying to get in your elevator speech. Let's talk about this first. So I'm going to tell a story. So I go back a long time in sales. I pretty much my first job out of college was selling. I used to cold call automotive repair shops, right? So I was selling marketing. So I was like, by the way, I was like 25. I was out partying all the time. I'd come in the morning. Like, I was like probably one of the only females on the sales team. And like, I'd come in with my little high heels and like be like, good morning, guys. And like get on my phone and start calling like automotive repair shops. And they loved me because I was, a female and I was fun and I was flirty. So I got really good at rejection right off the And from there went on to really learn how to be a really good salesperson and also eventually train sales teams and people to go out and actually make like millions of dollars, these sales teams and these people. Here's what I want to know. Here's what I want to say about sales 101 and networking, what I've known for 20 years of experience. And when I started, I was observing people because I didn't know what I was doing. In fact, I used to call my dad crying on the phone because I hated sales so much because I was just couldn't handle the rejection. And it took me a while to actually build that skin up a little bit. But then I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to learn. And I was observing the people around me. And this one guy was so good at sales. And I was like, what makes him good? What is it about this guy? So I ended up going up to him. And by the way, we ended up becoming really good friends. And he became a mentor of me. And I was like, tell me everything you know. Because I was always into learning. I always wanted to be the best. I always was up for the challenge. And I was like, what books did you read? Tell me, what do I need to do? And he's like, no, like, you don't need a book. You only need one book. And I was like, what book is it? And he's like, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Just read that book. And I did. That's honestly the only sales book I ever read. And it's not even a sales book. It's just how to connect with people. And it's so old. It's written in like 1920s or something like ridiculously a long time ago. But still holds true to today because of the core principles of this book, which are basically care about others, be genuine, really learn how to connect with other people. I actually wish I had printed out, there's like 10 principles or whatnot, but they're really basic and simple. Go read the book, go listen to the book. But the genuine, like the takeaway is if you care about other people, people are going to care about you and really genuinely care. And when I was training later in my career, my last job, I was a director of people and culture for a mortgage company. And when I first started working there, before I worked my way up, we would hire salespeople. My job was to hire salespeople. And I basically got paid to determine how successful somebody was going to be at sales. So at first, the owner of the company was trying to be like, let's do assessment tests. Wanting to do the Briggs and the top 5 and the strength fit finders and all that stuff. And it was interesting to kind of see when I was looking at actually when I learned who the top salespeople were and went and actually figured out what they were doing. And they were just really good at connecting. And also they were really clear about their why. So they knew why they were doing it. They were passionate about what they were doing, but they were really able to connect. So eventually I built out a training program for them just to train salespeople for them to grow their business. And I had, by the way, never sold a mortgage in my whole life, but was able to do this because I really understood the basics of sales. And the course or the training was them reading How to Win Friends and Influence People.
How did that influence the sales team after they read it?
It was the new people that were coming in. So it wasn't all the salespeople, but a majority of the people that came in did really well. And the thing is I would choose people that didn't necessarily have sales experience. I would choose people that had good connection skills over experience because I was hiring servers or people that were in the service industry.
Yeah.
Because they really knew how to connect and chat and were likable. So I think that that's a big thing is learning how just to really connect with other people. And the most important thing is, and this comes back to tying back to, okay, well then how do I talk about me? How do I make my offers? How do I get in my elevator pitch? You know how you do that? You become really, really, really interested in the other person. You ask them a lot of questions about themselves. And then at some point, they're going to be like, wow, this person's really cool. I like them. They're so interesting. And then they're going to want to ask you questions. And they're like, what do you do? And then at that point, they already have an affinity for you. They already like you. They already have a connection with you because you allowed them to talk about themselves. And that's what we all love. We just want to be seen. We want to be heard. And when you can just go into any networking event or any sales meeting, any sales consult call, and that's really my specialty is closing consult calls, and it always leading with curiosity. And that is a thing that, and I say it's curiosity and connection. If you can be curious and you can connect with somebody, if it's the right fit, it's going to lead to a sale without you trying.
Yeah, it's funny because I read that book also. And I read it because an ex of mine who was actually named Dale, which is funny, was like, you need to read this book. And I was like, okay. And I was a bartender at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what my big takeaway was back then? It was everybody loves the sound of their own name. And so if you can remember people's names, it makes them feel so special. And this can all sound like very manipulative advice depending on how you're hearing us tell you. And in the way that I read that book and understood it back then, it was coming from a really genuine place. So it's not meant to be like, this is how you manipulate people, but really I learned how to get curious about people. And to this day, I will meet people once, but I'll remember their business. I'll remember their name. I'll remember something recent that just happened in their life. And it's all because I think I've trained my brain to be that curious to the point where I'm like, oh, I remember you. And I could list off a number of things about it. Happened to us when we were walking through the park today when I was like, oh, this is so-and-so and she does this. And she was like, it's like,
because you make people feel special.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about. And it's the small little things.
I have to say, I'm not even trying to make people feel special at this point. It's like, I'm just genuinely curious,
But
you
that's
know?
that's the whole point, which I was going to bring back, which is how it becomes not manipulative is once again the intention behind it and why you're doing it. So if it's coming from a very natural, genuine place, and I think at this point, when me and Jen sat down to record this, we're like, okay, this has become so natural for us. Like, how do we actually articulate this? And I think that's ultimately what we want for you, where it's not second, you're not, it's second nature to connect with somebody naturally. You're not, when they're talking, you're not in your head, okay, well, what question do I need to ask next? Or right, where it's just very of a flow thing, which I think takes some time. But it's
Mhm.
really when you're just connected to yourself, you're very present, you're really there. That's really when the magic happens, is that openness that really people can feel.
Yeah, and it's also the detachment to any sort of result also. And this is
Yeah.
just like, to put it in a really simple example, this is like, even this morning we were just on a walk, and our intention was just to walk around this really beautiful part of Mexico City because Lauren had remembered it from a trip she had taken before.
Yeah. Amsterdam Street, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so
Vibe.
beautiful. And so, we could have been really like just attached to the whole, we're just going to stick to Amsterdam Street and we're just going to do a circle around it and then walk home. But something about crossing this one intersection where we could have gone into the park or just continued down Amsterdam
Mhm.
Street. Amber's like, oh, let's go into the park. And Lauren's, yeah, I love the park.
Yeah.
It was like spontaneous, being open to
Yeah.
what was in front of us. We walked into the park, and lo and behold, Lauren knows somebody at the park. And it's wait a minute. She doesn't even live here.
I'm like, there's just Angel and Caitlin. Oh my gosh. And we had just talked about them. They're some of my DJ friends that I met in Sayulita, and they're here DJing this weekend. So I'm like, oh, maybe we should go to their show tonight. Lo and behold, literally 5 minutes later,
So
I'm like,
crazy.
they're there.
Yeah. And that does take, like you said, like practice and
Yeah.
cultivation, because if we get so hung up, I'm saying we, I'm talking about me. Like, I can get so hung up on my plan and what this is for, what
Yeah.
I'm doing this for, that I can forget to just take a breather and relax into it and just really be present and enjoy the moment. And that's something that I do like to remind myself of
Yeah.
daily.
Absolutely. And I love, oh, me. My whole thing is getting out of our heads and into our body. That's like where the embodiment is. That's where the flow, that's where the guidance is when we're not just in it. And I think this is so important. This is the biggest mistake I see when people are doing consult calls. So for those that don't know, I'm like the consult call queen. At this point, I've done over 500 or 600 consult calls selling coaching or consulting, closing millions of dollars on this. And I train other people on this. And here's the number one thing that people get in their mind when they're not able to sell their services or having conversations, is that they're in their head instead of in their body. And instead of just being present and allowing things to unfold, they're overthinking, or they think they have to follow a script, or they're like, what do I need to say in order to get them to a yes? And if you're on a call or in person and you're having a conversation and that's what you're thinking, you're in your head. And at that point, that's when it becomes manipulative and icky, versus when you're just in your body, present, listening, and just responding and having a conversation instead of trying to cover points or say the right thing. And also what I like have known too, where it's when we try to overthink things, we overcomplicate it. When we really just can get in our bodies, that's where the clarity comes through. And when you're just and you're not overthinking it, people can feel that, and that feeling, that relaxedness, that not trying to force a certain conversation is the thing that creates that connection and that bond that makes people like feel open and want to work with you.
Yeah, I think all of this is it's complex, but it's simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making friends or networking in your 40s is a lot of it. And this is kind of what you were just saying, is like, we're holding ourselves because we maybe have some sort of belief about making friends
Yeah.
after a certain age. Like, it's so normal for a lot of people to not,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I'm glad you say that, because I think that we can look at other people's or look at our lives and think it should look a certain way, or it's not the way that we think it is. But things can change drastically. If you aren't having the friendships or the connections or the networking that you want, just know that it takes some time. It takes like practice. It puts your willingness to put out there, but so worth it. I think about, and then I also want to say this: entrepreneurship is a lonely road,
Yeah.
right? Like I couldn't imagine doing this alone. What makes it fun? What makes it worth it? What allows me to get to where I am right now is by doing it with a network of people, with friends, with clients. It's all about our ability to really connect with somebody and connect with them very genuinely.
Yeah. I I second that. I really do. And as somebody who's gone through, okay, because I went through a couple of years of depression, like when my business closed down, and I was literally only talking to a handful of people. It was Lauren, I was living with Amber, right? Like my friend Alexander, there's maybe two other people, my cousin,
Yep.
you know, who I was talking to. And I needed that time to be in hermit mode, to take care of myself, to get back into like a good state of mental health. And all of those things needed to be in place for me to want to even be social again. And I mean, I was like in such a state where I remember this one time we were at Amber's house in Hawaii, and one of her friends just stopped over to like surprise and hang out and say hi to the kids. So he dropped by unexpectedly, which at this point in my life, I would welcome the friend in. I threw a fit like a child throws a fit. I was like, no, I don't want to see him. And I was like crying in the room. And Amber, bless her heart, and I never say that, but like she was just always so patient and is always so patient with me. She's like, you don't have to talk to anybody. And so she went out, talked to her friend, explained probably nothing. She probably didn't even say anything. But at that point in my life, I wasn't in this social space. So this is really us talking to you if you're ready to make friends and you're wondering how to do it because you haven't done it in such a long time. This is basically like a brain dump of all of the things you could possibly do that have worked for us in the past. Yeah. And hopefully it sparks some inspiration because you can do it. Yeah. I mean, it might sound super, super scary because you're so used to the friends you already have and have probably had for the last 15, 20 years. And that gets to be okay too, right? You get to have your old friends and make new friends, and neither of them needs to feel better or worse. Yeah. It just gets to be new connections, and it really does wake up something inside of you when you meet new people.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I'm so glad that you brought that up about your depression, and because we're all in seasons. I can never be on all the time. That's not what I was born to do. I have like ebbs and flows of when I'm feeling really social and when I'm really open to meeting people. And then there's times where I'm just like, no, like, I just want to like be in my little hermit and be alone. So it's really for those that are ready. But oh man, right now, especially this week being here in Mexico City with Jen and considering making another move and coming to live here for a bit, the reason why I'm able to do that so flippantly, right? Just be like, cool, I'll move to Mexico City. Like literally, that's how I'm doing it. That's how I moved to That's how I moved to Sayulita. It was just like this, right? Because I've gotten really good at meeting people, so I know that I'm going to meet new friends and I'm going to open it up. And every single time I move to a new city, there's always a little bit of fear and there's a little bit of uncomfortableness, but it's so worth it. And now that I've been living abroad for almost 3.5 years, it'll be 4 years in July. I think about all the friends I've met and all the friends I have all around the world. And my mind is blown with the people and experiences and the expansion that I've gone through and that I've seen that we both have seen each other gone through by expanding our groups, and not just our friendship groups, but also our networking, which has now shaped the way our business is and the way that we're doing business. And personally right now, me and Jen are heavily relying on networking for our business. It's kind of where we're both preferring is more in person or just like more intimate networking. And that's what we're relying on, just to kind of give you a behind the scenes that we're talking about this because this is what we're doing in our business, because really, and it's always been for me, the word of mouth is my number, repeat clients, word of mouth, referrals. That's how my business has basically stayed afloat for 8 years. And it's
Mhm.
because I really have learned and got really good at connecting and networking and making new friends, and have allowed myself to have the seasons of ups and downs. And also me evolving as a person has outgrown friends and made new friends.
I have to say this while we're talking about this,
Yeah.
because it just occurred to me that we are taught a lot of the time online that what you need is a sales funnel and how to learn how to do right. And I've actually even seen this in some of my friends. I've seen some of my friends running ads on social media, and that's great and cool and whatever. I want to say, step out on a limb and just be like, actually, it's not necessary. You can if you want to run ads, if you like building those out, or if you have the money to hire a team to do it for you, but you can do this entirely organically.
Yeah.
And and even if you are in a smaller town and what you do have access to is online networking groups or social media, you can use those resources with the same advice that we're kind of giving
Yeah.
right now, because the thing about running ads is that it's kind of a cold tap on the shoulder from someone you haven't met. And so that person has to see your ad run at least 7 times in order for that ad to like even really catch their eye.
Yep.
And if you are to go and actually just meet people by joining Facebook groups or meetup.com groups or Eventbrite, or finding online networking groups to be doing Zoom calls with, you can meet one person on that call who you really super connect with. They only meet you that one time, but they end up hiring you. It's a faster route sometimes, but like that skill that you need to build up is still there. You still got to build up that skill.
Totally. The online space has drastically changed in the last 4 years since 2020. And, I think we joke around where people were just like literally spending money on nothing on coaching. It was like no big deal.
Oh my goodness.
But nowadays, there's a much longer buying process, right? It takes longer for somebody to get to the decision to actually want to work with you. A sales cycle is the word. Thank you. A much, much longer sales cycle. Because in order for somebody to buy from you, want to work with you, they have to trust, and they have to know you. And that can happen over social media or YouTubes or videos over time. But if you meet somebody in person and you have an experience or interaction that like they could feel it, it changes it just like that.
That's
right. So this is about our ability. And once again, going back to working smarter instead of harder, when you can really be open and be a state where you're feeling really comfortable with yourself, you're being yourself, you're loose, you're just out there talking to people, that can make you a very magnetic thing, because you're not in this like raspy, needy place where you're like needing things to happen. And when you're able to really lean back and be in this receptive mode, it makes things easier for you to connect with people so that you don't have to work as hard or do even social media. Like I think that, yes, I think social media is amazing, and for sure use it in your business. It's a beautiful tool, but you're also able to cut through to the connection faster by in person.
Yes. And I will say this too. If you are an introverted person, this isn't to say that you need to act fake. Okay. I'm going to say this take this advice with a grain of salt. I was going to say, take an anchor friend with you who makes you feel comfortable. But there's a trap in that where if you go with somebody who makes you feel comfortable, you could just end up hanging out with them in a corner all night long. Yeah. So it's also got to be a friend who's a talkative social friend who's going to like introduce you. Lauren is this friend for me, right? I'm trying to be that friend for her here in Mexico City.
She is.
But like, go with that friend who's, hey, so-and-so, this is my friend, so-and-so, you know what I mean? Don't go with your friend who's also a hermit. You know what I mean? Like, go and be willing to split off from your friend, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And just be open. Like I said, you just never know. One of my favorite stories recently is I was up in Long Beach with my dad at a record store, and I started talking to this woman who she commented on my earrings. I had these earrings on, and she's like, I love your earrings. I'm like, oh, I got them in Sayulita, Mexico. And we started talking. And that one conversation turned into, we had so much in common. So we exchanged numbers and now we're friends. And now she's in one of my programs. Right. So it's just, you just never, right? You just never know. And I think it's just allowing that. And it's just the energy being open. It's you deciding that, you know what? I'm going to start small. I'm just going to be open to being open in my own routine. Right. And then from there, maybe you're using apps or trying to locate people in your area. Then maybe you're trying online. I think another thing too is depending, on how much you want to spend, but like going to retreats or going places that your people are. Right. And once again, just doing this with no expectations except going and having fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to expect to sell a bunch of,
whatever,
place seats in your program, if you're going and you're hoping to like sign that $50,000 client, you're going with this energy that people can feel off of you, right? It is, yeah. Because as soon as somebody talks to me and I feel like they're about to try and sell me something, I've already shut off.
Totally. So going back to this, like being grasping and repelling energy, so we'll probably talk more about this in the next episodes or something, but my main focus for the last couple of years, even over prioritizing my business, has been dating and love. Now, finding a soulmate is a lot like finding soulmate clients and soulmate friends. And it's been fun. I mean, I can't probably at this point, maybe I've gone on like 40 first dates or something, like and this is the last couple of years. So I think back to, you think about, okay, well, what determines what makes a connection and what not? So there's been times where I've gone on dates and I remember like the very first date, the guy was like, oh my gosh, I really like you. Like if this works out, because at this point I didn't have a car because I've been, living in Mexico. They like, I have an extra car. You can use my car. And it was just like, I want to take you to Hawaii. This is the first date, you guys. Like, this is like, whoa, this is so much. Or I've had where people are like, I like you. Do you like me? Like on that, like within like minutes of meeting people. Seriously. And it's like, those are the ones where I'm like, they're trying way too hard. And then there's been other people where first time we're meeting, we're sitting at a bar and 30 minutes in and we're like making out at the bar. What determines this like what a connection is like they're meant to be, or when it comes to dating there's like a certain vibe, but it's, are we on the same vibe? Is there energy? Because if the guys that were kind of like really, really into me, every single one of them, I didn't want to see any of them. And of course we like think we want to hear that, but it's like all about the right timing. If we don't feeling it, it's not being reciprocated. So it's like being able to match somebody. You guys are both on the same wave. And that's the same thing with clients and with friends, is that neither of them are more needy than the other. We're both like, yeah, let's do this. There's like a vibe that's there. And it's our ability and how we really are able to close the gap, especially with friendships and clients, is our ability to connect, which is our ability to be open and our ability to be vulnerable.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Especially for dating. You're like, my ability to be vulnerable and open up and let guys in is the lesson I had to learn in order to find love.
Actually, that is the lesson that you also learn, not you, but like us, right? Everybody. When you start marketing your services online.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say because I have done some things to like sell things that I don't like. And I don't mean like feet pics. I mean like oversharing. That's a thing too.
Yeah.
But in order to know which stories are okay for you, like you've got to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I feel really comfortable now telling almost any story. You know what I mean? From like my past or my current circumstances. And being very, very mindful of not like letting that turn into trauma dumping.
Yeah.
Also, right? Please get therapists. Do not try to turn your friends, your partners, anybody, your business partner into your therapist, but learning what that balance is of being able to just be open and be vulnerable and creating a real connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With somebody. And we're in our 40s. You know how to do that. You know how to have a real conversation. Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't think that you're somebody who's really clueless on this matter.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I think just once, and I want to end with this is allow this to be fun. That's really it. And that's, you'll hear us say this over and over and over again. Just don't overthink it. Go in with a little bit of space, because it's in that space that magic can happen and the unknown can happen. And when you're just doing it for the fun of it, it makes it more fun, and the right things are going to happen and people can feel that. And also too, if you think about when you go into a party, the person that's having fun is where people want to be, right? The one that's like in the corner, like with their drink or eating or whatever, or being nervous. That's not what's tracking it, right? Go and just be yourself, be open, have fun.
And if it's not you, if that's not your natural state of being, then I'm here to say that if you want it bad enough, you can learn how to do it, but do it scared.
Yeah.
Let yourself do it scared.
Yeah.
Anyways, we believe in you. You can do this.
And we'll be back with another episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey friend, enjoying this podcast and want to work with us to simplify and scale your business? We have a full-service boutique agency. Check out the show notes for more information and to apply to work with us.